What's the worst cheating story you've ever heard? Couple was together for 8 years, both working at sea on the same ship for 8 to 11 week trips, bought the house and heading towards marriage, kids, etc., etc. Started an 11-week trip and noticed something wasn't right. Girl had fooled around with another crew member on the trip off and wanted to be with him. Guy had to watch the start of the new relationship while in a floating prison, and due to his qualifications, couldn't leave the ship. Source? Me. I am that guy. This happened about 12 years ago. It was 4 years before I dated again, but honestly, I still struggle to bring my walls down and really let anyone in. I had to stay on board as the company needed my engineering qualification to operate legally. They had no one to cover for me. They really did try, too. I'll finish with a good note. While sitting on the stern for hours, it was followed by something glorious that got me through. Maybe it was my guardian angel, maybe divine intervention. Call it whatever you want, but it was amazing. I'd finished my inspection rounds, which was usually around 2 a.m., sitting there wanting to jump as I felt my whole life had already ended. I was just there for the ride. I must have entered a trance-like state as the next thing I looked up from the rushing water to see the sun just starting to peak over the horizon, showing one of the best sunrises I'd ever seen. Dolphins were hanging around below me. Seabirds were cruising, and I don't know exactly what it was, but the whole combination just made me feel like nature was there for me. But she also didn't want me to join her. So I guess my take from all this is that if you're ever in a position this low, and you think ending it all is the only way out, find the one thing that you love and hold on to it tightly. Life will always get better. Trust me, it will get better. Mother Nature, I love you. Story 2. My bio-mom's best friend was diagnosed with stage 4 lung cancer. We moved her husband, and her daughter in with us. My mom slept with her husband and got pregnant, so they put her in a nursing home to pass away all alone, just so they wouldn't have to deal with the consequences. She was hours away as well, so her daughter, who was 10 at the time, was unable to visit her. She passed away alone because she went to her best friend for help. I don't speak to my bio-mom anymore. After her friend's passing, she showed off her brand new car, bought with the life insurance money. She married her husband. At the time, her best friend also had a 19-year-old daughter who was homeless with a toddler. I felt so sick sitting in the car listening to her brag about how nice it was and how she finally got the car she deserved. Some people are disgusting. My bio-mom was a counselor, and the way she even met this best friend of hers was through the daughter who was 19 with a toddler. They met when said daughter was 13. My bio-mom was her caseworker for mental health support. She crossed a huge professional boundary doing this. On top of that, she came into this girl's life to help her and ended up hurting her so badly. Her mom, who passed, wasn't the only victim here. My bio-mom was also married. There are other children involved, etc. So many people were hurt by this. It's truly sickening. To be honest, during my bio-mom's pregnancy, her mom also got stage 4 lung cancer. She passed away within 7 weeks and never met my bio-mom's baby. I feel like it was her fault, in a sense. I truly believe karma can and will get you through loved ones. Story 3. I was an IT contractor for the Department of Defense, NMCI for those curious. We got a keyword alert and an email conversation, then more. Same folks involved. So we went and checked out the email in the email thread. Turns out it was a senior chief who was talking to nearly half a dozen women under his chain of command that he was having affairs with, multiples of which were pregnant with his children. He, of course, was married, having 4 kids with his wife. What started out with a, "Hey, you're not supposed to discuss that," on a regular email investigation, turned into a massive scandal, wrecking multiple marriages and turned into a whole lot of meetings with his very angry CEO. Don't do stupid crap on company email, and really don't do stupid crap on DoD servers. Just don't do stupid crap in general. Story 4. One of my wife's cousins passed away of cancer after a 30-year marriage. When her husband was clearing out her home office, he found a box of diaries, receipts, letters, hotel keys, etc., detailing the hundreds of times she cheated on him with random guys throughout their whole marriage, going so far as to take their daughters to meetups and gaslighting them about what was happening. Story 5. My friend was partying with her boyfriend and some other people. Her boyfriend fooled with another girl on the same couch as her while she was passed out. She woke up part of the way through it and just didn't know what to do. Story 6. Not me, but my best friend. He was madly in love with a woman and wanted to marry her. They lived together and were very happy. As a birthday gift, she bought him a plane ticket so he could fly out to see me. While he was with me, he would talk to her every so often. Every time he got off the phone with her, he would tell me something just wasn't right. His spidey sense was tingling. He came home to find evidence that she had someone over at their place. She initially denied it, but eventually she admitted to having a male coworker in the house. Her buying the ticket was just a way for her to have the place to herself for a 3-day fooling around. My buddy was devastated and heartbroken. It took him years to recover. This was many years ago. My buddy is doing just fine and is in a happy, healthy relationship. The woman in the story, not so much. She bottomed out in life. Substances and alcohol eventually took over. Last I heard, she was quasi-homeless and had to shack up with a much older, controlling man just so she could have a place to sleep. Everyone got what they deserved in the end. Story 7. Former colleague of mine in his mid-30s was living with his long-term girlfriend and they had been shopping for engagement rings. He comes to work one day and early afternoon receives a text from her telling him she's seeing someone else. Has packed up the house and moved out to live with the other guy. No apology, no further explanation. She then immediately blocked him and left him to deal with the rent and the other bills on his own. He was a nice guy. It was horrendous to see that happen to him. He's now happily married. To someone else, of course. Story 8. I ran into my ex-wife's mother at a bar with some guy like 10 years after we separated. Said hi and disappeared quickly. 6 months later, she's in the local paper. Apparently, the guy she was with was her paralyzed husband's brother that she was fooling around. She ended it all in jail after being arrested for trying to hire a cop to end her husband. I was so relieved to have gone away from that craziness and surprised my ex didn't ask her to make it a 2-for-1 special with me thrown into boot. Story 9. My cousin told me this while he was in boot camp. There was a guy who had a girlfriend or wife and a girl who had a boyfriend or husband. One day, the boy and the girl decided to cheat on their significant other the day before graduating from boot camp. A sergeant, who was a family man and didn't approve of people who cheated on their significant others, saw them kissing. And he had them call their significant other to tell them that they wouldn't be graduating from boot camp and needed to start from day one of boot camp because they chose to cheat on their significant other. Oh my gosh. Justice. Story 10. My friend's husband hired a street worker for $40 when my friend was a few weeks postpartum with her baby. He invited the street worker over to their house while taking care of their baby and had intimacy in their bed. My friend found out later because he was missing from the school where they both worked and she found out he had been arrested or detained or something. I forget exactly. Because he had gone to the police to report that he was being blackmailed. The street worker had started blackmailing him and he went to a loan shark to get $1,000 to pay her off, and when she demanded more money, I guess he decided he couldn't keep paying and tried to report her to the cops and tried to lie about his involvement. The cops obviously were suspicious and found out he had hired her. He was fired from his job at the school and it crushed my friend. To add insult to injury, her mother-in-law blamed her, saying that she hadn't slept with her husband during some of the pregnancy. It was causing her a lot of pain at the end of her pregnancy and she physically couldn't. She's still with him. I hate his guts so much and it makes me so furious that she's still with that schmuck. Story 11. Not so much cheating, but this guy I personally knew when I was running around in the streets had about 5 women, all older, all with their own homes, either cheating on their husbands with him or divorced. That's not the worst part, though. He admitted to me that he would purposely seek out oldish, lonely women, got them on substances like he was, specifically so he'd have these women rely on him for their substances and he'd have a bed to fall into every night or could ask them for money whenever he needed it. He was willfully and knowingly getting these middle or upper class women with no real experience with substances or the street life, little by little so he could use them for his personal gain. That was his hustle. That was his job. It's literally what he devoted his life to doing. When he first told me, it blew my mind that I was talking to a bona fide psychopath. I'd like to say that I cut all contact with him after that, but at the time he was my dealer, so I didn't. Dude would tell me stories of how he had these chicks wrapped around his finger, how he just got $500 from this one chick because he fed her some story about his rent, and tomorrow he was getting $400 from the next one because he fed her the same story. And the night after that, he had to go sleep with number 3 because her husband wouldn't be there. We juggled him like it was a business, because to him it was. Crazy as heck. What kind of business model is that? Story 12. I know someone who regularly cheated on their out-of-town girlfriend. I guess he was going to cut all that out when she finished her advanced degree program out of state. She moved to his state and they got an apartment together. While in the shower, his phone is buzzing with messages. He finds the girl's username, sending all these messages, and decides to send her a direct message from her own account. And the other girl is completely honest with her. I know who you are. I fool around with your boyfriend all the time, including last weekend at your new apartment, in your bed, etc., etc. Story 13. My mom told me the story about one of my dad's old colleagues. She was an acquaintance of his wife. They'd been married for years, an older couple. He cheated on her with an 18-year-old. In a fit of rage, she bought a new car, new clothes, and threw a few enormous parties. When the anger passed, she became severely depressed and ended it all. They found her in the entrance of their house. They had kids too, but I think they were in their early 20s by then. Story 14. When I was a police officer, a coworker found his wife in bed with another police officer from the same district. Wife would tell the lover about the husband's week schedule, and the lover would have his change in order to have intimacy with the wife while the husband was working. Problem was, one day the husband got dismissed 3 hours early and went back home without texting his wife first. He had some suspects, but could never imagine about another police officer. No shots were fired that day, luckily. Story 15. I was working in IT and needed to perform manual backups of sales laptops. Long story short, I found dozens of pics and videos of two coworkers getting it on in a company-provided hotel room. They left nothing to the imagination. The guy also saved screenshots of texts between him and his wife. She had found out about the affair and was in the process of divorcing him. It was really messy. Kids involved and all that. Sat him down and told him I found crap that shouldn't be on company property. He turned white as a ghost. But I told him I'd keep it between us, which I did. Data was deleted and that was it, about it. Oh yeah, my best friend or best man at my wedding slept with my married sister on my wedding night too. That's a story about cheating I'll never forget. Turns out a full open bar at the reception wasn't the best idea. Story 16. My ex-partner let me raise her kid for 4 years while cheating on me with his father the whole time. Let me propose, to which she said yes. Then one night, after me paying up his month of private nursery fees and putting him to bed, I came through to her telling me to leave or she'd call the police and tell them I had broken into the house and never to contact them again. They bought a house together now and are seemingly doing well, while I still haven't fully recovered and don't know my own self-worth. That's a shortened version of events. Story 17. I worked in a factory. We will call them Ben and Sarah. Ben was a supervisor of maintenance and Sarah worked setup, sort of a maintenance person specialized for that specific production line. Ben's wife was diagnosed with terminal cancer. When this happened, Ben started cheating on his wife with Sarah. He had quite a bit of money and promised Sarah that after his wife passed, they'd move away to a beautiful cabin in British Columbia in the mountains. I caught them having intimacy in the maintenance office one midnight shift. I didn't report it because I was a dumb 21-year-old. Long story short, Ben promised Sarah the world after his wife passed. Well, his wife ended up beating this terminal diagnosis and he broke it off with Sarah. This literally drove Sarah insane and she was forced to check into a mental hospital. I never saw her again after that. I hope bad things happened to Ben. Story 18. There was a malpractice case report in their medicine subreddit. There was a guy whose wife tells him she wants a divorce. He leaves and says he's going to end it all. She calls the cops and they find him alive. They take him to the ER and the ER doc assesses him and determines he's not a risk to himself or others. He's discharged from the ER, goes home and attends couples counseling with his wife. 18 days after being discharged from the ER, he ended it all. Almost immediately after that, the widow starts openly dating another man. She wants to file a malpractice lawsuit against the doctor who assessed him, but it turns out that the doctor passed away 4 days before the guy ended it all. So she ended up suing his widow as the representative of his estate, and she didn't want to go through a trial, so she settled for a few $1,000,000. Then it comes out that the woman was already in a relationship with a new man before she even brought up the divorce. So to recap, a woman cheats on her husband, leads him to end it all, and sues his doctor's grieving widow. What? Story 19. An ex was at a party with her then-boyfriend, but she wanted to have intimacy with another guy, so she gave her boyfriend 2 really strong pills telling him they were substances. This was 90s Scotland, so people were given pills like Smarties without asking too many questions. When he passed out, she went upstairs and did the do with the other guy. Story 20. Years back, in my early 20s, there was one guy who was in my extended friend group. They didn't know him that well, but he was a friend of a friend, and we would occasionally find ourselves in the same social gatherings. They just started dating this girl. She was maybe a few years younger than us, probably about 18 to 19. They were at the very start of their relationship, so I don't know if they were exclusive to each other. But people knew they were dating. A bunch of them went out on a night out. I didn't go out, but I heard about what happened later on. This friend of mine got extremely intoxicated. The girl he was seeing helped him back to his house. His dad was still up and heard them trying to get into the door. This was the first time the girl had met his dad. The dad helped a friend to his room, then invited the girl in for a chat and to get to know her a bit. The girl ended up fooling with the dad that night. I don't know whether this is a funny story or a sad one, but dang. Story 21. The day my brother was born, my father was in the hospital with my mom for the delivery. Told her he wished she wasn't the mom, and then went and spent the night at his girlfriend's house while I, 5 years old, stayed with my grandparents. He was a long-haul trucker and was back on the road immediately after, so my mom brought my brother home from the hospital alone. Had a 5-year-old me to take care of and a dog as well, and it was a C-section birth. No idea how she did it. Anyway, my brother and I are both well-adjusted adults. I do get pretty sad when thinking about my childhood, and I've never cheated on a partner, and I'm a good father to a wonderful 2-year-old with another baby on the way. I have a bunch of other terrible cheating stories from my childhood if anyone is interested. Story 22. This one posted a few days ago where the husband worked long hours and was on an unusually long business trip, busting his back off. He came back home accomplished as he got the promotion of his life, and he and his wife would never worry about paycheck to paycheck living again. Instead, he found her cheating with a man who understood her religious beliefs. She came to Reddit trying to get sympathy from the masses. In my head, I imagine the man is as happy as a dog when humans arrive home. Can't contain his joy and can't wait to show his wife that he went above and beyond for his family. It contributed, and it was worthwhile. The moment he saw her, he shut down hard. Walked away and didn't speak to her for 10 straight days. My heart breaks for that guy. And she deserves nothing but pain and sadness. Story 23. My mate was 16 when he fell in love with a girl it turned out he knew when they were toddlers. She got pregnant. He gave up a training course to work as a builder for instant money. He was so happy, so excited for the future. Went on holiday, cheated on him repeatedly, and when he found out, she blamed him for her behavior. They split up. She put up posters around where he lived with a picture of him accusing him of all sorts. She completely humiliated him. He tried to take his life. He survived but ended up in a place at the age of 17 surrounded by users and kiddie fiddlers recently released from prison. The poor guy ended up a user and never recovered. I lost contact, and the last time I saw him was shortly before my wedding 18 years ago. He was clean, but mentally wasn't the same. Story 24. One day I got a call from a friend who I would see every few months. He was mad and crying and said he needed someone to have a beer with and to talk to. I went to meet him at a local bar and he was losing it. He started telling me the story that a few months ago a mate he went to the military with had fallen on hard times and become homeless. To help him out, he paid for him to get a moving truck and move all his stuff down to his house to live with him for a while to get situated. He moved in. My buddy got him a job somewhere and he was doing great and much better for himself. Well, one night my buddy woke up in the middle of the night and his wife was gone. He looked around the house and couldn't find his wife anywhere. He noticed his buddy was also gone. He went out to his driveway and his truck windows were all covered in steam. He opened the door to see his wife having intimacy with his buddy. He said he ran in the house, infuriated, I guess just to grab something. He ran back out, but his buddy was gone, and his wife was still getting dressed in his truck. They ended up getting divorced, and he was single for several years, doing his thing. I only really see this friend on social media now, but I see that he and his ex-wife got remarried and had more kids together. I don't know how he accepted her back after that scene. If you're enjoying the video, don't forget to hit that subscribe and like button for more videos like this. Story 25. My buddy divorced his wife of 10 years because they had problems with finances and she was overspending. For context, my buddy does not pay attention to things very well and is very oblivious. Anyways, they both remarried and her next husband was a bit more attentive and discovered she had been living a very double life. And by more attentive, I mean their first child was not the same skin color, and she confessed that all 4 of her children belonged to other men. DNA tests my buddy asked for confirmed that only their second child was actually his, so this also exposed that she was intentionally getting pregnant by other men, and my buddy lucked out. Story 26. This was a long time ago. Girl I was interested in told me she recently broke up with her boyfriend but still lived with him. One night she told me he'd hurt her. They brought some of her mutual friends over to her place to help her move out. The ex-boyfriend came home to see all of us standing there moving furniture. My friends and I are heated when we see him. We confronted him, roughened him up a bit, pushed him up against the fence. This guy didn't say a word. He looked like he was about to cry. It was just weird. We thought he'd fight back, but he didn't. We grabbed the rest of this girl's stuff and we leave. The girl and I ended up dating seriously. It's now years later and we've been living together for a while now. Things were going well in the relationship. We start arguing a lot. She starts instigating fights and leaves the home more. I get a random call one night from a guy who says I need to stop hurting this girl. For the record, I've never put a hand on this girl or any girl, ever. He shows up one night and we have a fist fight in front of my apartment. Turns out she's been feeding this guy lies about me being cruel and that they've been fooling around. This is the same thing she did to me when we first met. When I had to talk with her a week later, she admitted to making some of that stuff up when we first met. Yeah, you and your buddies were like cops that just listen instantly to false accusations. Story 27. I moved across the country to marry a guy I met online. We have no issues and we've been married for 16 years. I made a new friend and one of my old friends from my hometown called me when I was with a new friend. They flirted over my phone call and ended up long-distance dating. Now my friend from my hometown, Sally, was known to be a bit of a witch. She'd done many things that I honestly shouldn't have remained friends with her over, including having intimacy with my boyfriend who later came out as gay. Wild tangent, sorry. Needless to say, I should have been kinder to my new friend, Kent, and explained better who she was and not to get involved. Anyway, Sally comes out and stays with him for a week, leaving her child with her mom. When she gets back, she admits to cheating on him because she has a high drive. He forgives her and says that it is tough to feel that way and that in the future, if she's feeling that way, she should talk to him. She takes that as, call me if you want to cheat on me, so it'll be okay. One night at 3 a.m., she calls and wakes him up to ask if she can have intimacy with this group of people from a bar. He said, sure, do what you want because you aren't in a relationship anymore. Kent still hasn't recovered from that relationship, and it has been 13-ish years. Story 28. I had 2 good friends in college, and all 3 of our wives cheated on us. I was first in line. My best friend of 8 years and wife of 3, B, came home at 6 a.m. from another man's house. She started acting differently from meeting him and another couple at her new job. It was truly strange and unexpected. It got us into counseling, but this happened shortly thereafter. I asked her to pack her crap up, which she did without a word, and I drove her back to his place and said, she's your problem now, schmuck. Next came my friend Q, who married his high school sweetheart. She came across as the squeaky clean girl from next door who, in fact, played Alice in the Wonderland as a character actor at Disneyland. A number of years into their marriage, she confessed to cheating on him with his best friend. This was on the eve of their anniversary, and they had tickets for a getaway to the Bahamas to celebrate. He told her he'd not be joining her, so she went alone. When she was gone, he had a paternity test done that indicated he was not their child's father. Their marriage ended, and she took their daughter with her. The last was my friend D, whose wife, O, cheated on him while she was out of town. I'd happily remarried, going on 31 years now, and we were best friends with this couple. Although they never told us the situation, we suspect that as much, as they stopped getting together with us. She completely changed her appearance from J. Crew barn jacket girl to witch, and he looked as though he'd been through the ringer. Some months later, I got a call from my friend Q. He told me someone had seen O coming out of another guy's apartment early one morning and asked whether she was having an affair. I asked who it was who told him that, and with a lot of coercing, he finally admitted it was my ex-wife. The truth came out, and D and O split up. He remarried and now has children. Story 29. There's one on Boru. Though I survived cancer, dude supported her all the way. She makes it through, and they start checking off bucket list items. Her friend had convinced her to ask for a hall pass. Husband denies the pass. Wife says she's going to do it anyways, and he should be supportive. Hall pass was for a coworker that was leaving, but always attracted to her. Husband follows her to the going away party and watches as she leaves with a coworker. Husband packs his things and leaves. She threw away a supportive marriage for a brief fling. Ended up blaming the friend for convincing her to go along with it and ending the friendship in hopes of getting her husband back. Which, by the end of the story, didn't happen. It shook me until I could give my wife a hug. Story 30. A good friend of mine was a doctor who took over his father's private practice when he retired. His wife was a med student when they first started dating. 10 years younger than him, one of the most intelligent and beautiful person I ever met. When she graduated, they became associates, and under her management, the practice grew to 4 associates and 6 contracted doctors. Truly an amazing person, highly competent, born leader, funny, the list goes on. But my friend no longer felt like the center of attention, so he quit being a doctor to become an influencer. You can imagine how that went. When that failed, he went and started an affair with a 19-year-old nurse in training who worked for his wife. She learned of the affair when the girl's mother knocked on her door. The man could have been happy, doing one of the most well-regarded jobs in the world while appreciating that his amazing wife was making everything around him better, but now he had to make this dream of a life a nightmare because of his overinflated ego. Story 31. How about that angel of a woman, for everyone who knew her, who was slowly ending her husband having swapped his meds? The husband, my very good accountant and hardworking man, was growing weaker every week until he stumbled on a piece of mail by chance. She had failed to shut the computer down and put it to sleep instead. The mail popped up as soon as he wanted to use the machine. On it, she was planning his passing with a lover, telling how good she was at being stealthy. The irony. She got rejected by her family and her son, 17, but as far as I know, she got out lightly because her husband didn't actually pass away. It's my understanding the lover dropped her pretty soon after she got kicked out of the house. I don't trust people easily, and this story is one of the reasons. Story 32. I know a woman who has been cheating on her high school sweetheart, who joined the Navy, basically since the job. They all sort of assumed they had an agreement because she was very fixated on being not like other girls and having wildly inappropriate levels of friendship and intimacy with all of his male friends. She found some trashy divorced guy 20 years her senior with a daughter 8 years younger than her at her office and proceeded to carry on a year-long affair, including interstate travel, and finally had to come clean to her husband when it got too obvious with her lies about travel falling apart. They got divorced, and it turns out she'd been fooling around basically all his friends the whole time. She fooled with one of his close friends at a group cabin trip where the friend was literally also having intimacy with another single mutual friend on the trip. She's a disgusting, selfish, terrible person. But there's at least some universe resetting itself with her because she's now stuck herself in a relationship with that guy, who treats her so badly while she intermittently cheats on him. She's setting herself up to be miserable for the rest of her life. What makes me ill is the husband still doesn't know all these dudes who claim to be his friend, had so much energy about the divorce, are still socializing with him. Have all been joyfully sleeping with his wife sometimes while he was literally asleep in another room. I'm not close enough to the situation to actually say anything, but it really is one of the most upsetting things I've ever known about in terms of people being absolute monsters to those they purport to care for. Story 33. Supported my ex for almost our entire relationship, 17 years in total. Married almost ends so she could go to college and get her master's degree. Throughout that time, I'd always been suspicious because she would be gone longer than usual sometimes, or I just didn't know where she went. I was working a lot to cover everything. She gets her master's and her first job in years and starts immediately having an affair with a guy at work. She drained her accounts and left me with the kids, stating he showed her what a real life could be. This guy was also married and his wife worked with him as well. It did not end well for them. Story 34. Not me, but a friend of her friend's wife, soon to be ex-wife, faked having cancer and getting treatments at the hospital for 4 months to be with her lover. She went as far as shaving her own head and telling my friend that she was going in for chemotherapy and tests, but no one else could come because she was immunocompromised. She was caught with my friend's uncle, who himself had cancer, said something sounded fishy, and told her to call the hospital she allegedly was getting treatment at. They called the hospital and were told that she wasn't in the system. Girl came half clean when confronted, but didn't tell the whole story. An incredibly crappy person. Definitely one of the most messed up cheating stories I've heard. Story 35. Not me, but my best friend was dating this girl, and they were both playing a virtual reality game where the phone of each player was needed to log in, and she had the game set on so she couldn't see anything except what was being shown through the screen, and apparently the guy she was talking to, his text pop up about how they had an amazing time and how they can't wait to have intimacy again, and he was heartbroken. Then he continued the game until everything was over, and then in a smart manner while she was playing and busy with the game, he took screenshots of the text from his phone, so that was kind of a big point, and then they broke up. New girlfriend is someone who I absolutely adore. She's a sweetheart, and my husband and I have met her and my best friend and had like a double date, and she is a very cool chick. Totally his type because I've known this guy for like 9 years, so I know him and she's perfect for him. Story 36. This is a bad one. It was a friend's friend from the UK and his bride-to-be. They're getting married and decide to have their hen and stag parties in Amsterdam, going out drinking around the city as separate groups and meeting back up at the end of the night. The whole of their close relations are there. Siblings, parents, loads of friends, etc. During the night, the separate parties divide into friendship groups and go their own ways. The groom gets pressured by his friends to sleep with the street workers before he finally settles down. Legal in Amsterdam. It has a bustling red light district, but stays faithful and doesn't actually do anything. The bride hears in the grapevine that her groom is shopping for street workers, and after getting very intoxicated and encouraged by her friends, they go to a club with rooms that have holes. Her friends pay, and she does so, finishing it off, both her and her friends in the room finding it all hilarious. You can pay a small fee to lift a screen and reveal the person in the next room, so at the end, her friend has the screen lifted. On the other side was her dad. Her freaking dad. Cut a long story short, she has some sort of nervous breakdown or mental episode on the spot and ends up in hospital for nearly 2 days. The wedding is canceled. The husband dumps her, her parents divorce. The family basically tears itself apart over the course of the next week. Oh my gosh. Sounds like a story from a comedy show, but jeez. Story 37. My ex-boyfriend and I had decided to move to Las Vegas together from Missouri. I had a job offer out there, so I found a job too. We went out and located an apartment, everything set to go. Though I thought our relationship was pretty stable then, he confirmed later that he was happy. We had some breakups and he had talked a lot of crap about me to his coworkers, so I declined to attend the going-away party his work friends threw. Instead, I spent the evening doing our laundry before packing it up and sewing up some things he had ripped. Naturally, he decided to sleep with one of his coworkers while I was doing this. I woke up in the middle of the night and he still wasn't home. Didn't answer any calls or texts. I freaked out, called hospitals, jails, looking for him. Finally went to the bar and found his car there, but not him. When he returned home, he lied, but it got him to confess he cheated. I jumped onto his lap and started swatting at him like an irritated cat does to an irritated dog. I didn't hurt him or anything, but shouldn't have done even that because soon after he realized that I had hidden the money we'd been saving up together for the move, I told him I would need some time to divide it up, that since he broke our agreement, I would take whatever I needed for the deposit in an apartment and give him the rest. I was pretty flush for the signing bonus, paid out vacation time, etc., so I didn't really need much, but he demanded I turn it all over to him right then. When I refused, he called the cops about it. They didn't care about the money, so I told them I hurt him. When they came, they asked if I put my hands on him in any way. I confessed I had, and they took me in for 12 hours in a technicality. They were very cool about it, fully realized how ridiculous it was and let me call as many people as I needed to. I missed my own going away party because I was in jail. I kept all the money after that, maybe $1,200. And his sister started blasting me on Facebook about what an awful witch I am because he had to borrow money from her. He's married in Texas now, probably cheats on his wife too. I found out later this wasn't his first time, so glad to be rid of that giant poop. Story 38. My mother-in-law's story. She had an affair for 4 years with a doctor at the hospital. She had a stay-at-home husband who did it all and 4 kids at home. 4 years. The worst part? She was loaded. He was not. She got the best lawyer, well, he got a state-appointed one. The 2 older kids went with their dad and the 2 small ones went with mom. Guess who had to pay child support? Not her. She messed with those kids' minds, keeping them from their dad. The worst part, she was gone Monday through Saturday for work. Instead of sending them to their dads, she hired a nanny. That's a person with a black heart. Story 39. My ex and I were in a long-distance relationship. I visited him 3 times in 8 months. He had me take pictures of him and the kids while we were out and about, which turned out to be for him to send to her. He didn't pay me back the money I loaned him after he sold his house, as promised. He paid for the Airbnb for 2 months for us to live in after he sold his house. I went to see him to help clean the house to sell. He took pictures of the Airbnb. That also turned out to be because he took money from the other woman to help pay for the Airbnb and other things. After I found out about the cheating, he proceeded to hurt me, screaming in my face because I looked through his phone. And he called me cruel and controlling because I went through his phone. He's great. Oh, I should mention he said I ruined everything and ruined his birthday. Story 40. Friend of mine when we were in college. He was dating this girl for about a year. I'd actually met him through her because we knew her first. He decides to spend a year studying abroad. He, being a broke college student, scrimps and saves every nickel and dime for months so that he can go see her over winter break. He gets the money together and flies out. She meets him at the airport and introduces him to her new boyfriend. The worst part was that because he'd spent pretty much everything he had on the plane tickets, he couldn't afford to get an earlier flight back, nor could he afford to get a hotel, so he just had to spend the 2 weeks hanging out with his now ex and the new dude. That is just cruel. Story 41. Steve and I were friends in high school. He was dating a twin. He was also sleeping with the other twin. We stayed in touch, and 2 years later, he invited me to visit him when he was going to school across the country. While I'm visiting, I learned that his now ex-girlfriend, the twin, had visited him the week before. They said they were still friends. I was gullible. We had intimacy one time, and we knew this thing we had wasn't serious. While I was there, I met one of his friends, and months later, we started dating. No big deal. Steve and I were just friends. We barely talked, but kept in touch. It gets better, I promise. Steve calls me and says how upset he is that I'm dating his friend, saying he hoped maybe you could start something more serious. He's still across the country. I bump into his ex-girlfriend at a bar, in the bathroom. They haven't been together for about 3 years, right? And I mention how Steve was mad at me for dating his friend. Silence. She says, "You know that Steve and I are still together, right?" Story 42. We had a buddy that graduated in our aerospace engineering cadre in school and ended up with a job at Boeing in Seattle. He met a girl and fell madly in love with her. We could tell that there were relationship issues, cheating from the get-go, but he was determined to make it work no matter what. He even agreed to an open relationship as they approached their wedding day. She eventually dumped him 6 months prior, and he was just devastated. He was eventually fired from Boeing and ended up back in our old college town, scooping ice cream at a local shop and reliving his old college days. He's a great guy and didn't deserve any of what that woman put him through. Story 43. About 7 years into our marriage, my wife and I were having a rough year and barely any intimacy. A year or 2 after that, things were good again, and we had our first child. When our kid was about 3, I got a phone call from an old friend who told me he accessed his wife's phone and found text messages between my wife and his, where they were both confessing all the terrible and dishonest things they ever did. They said I should try and get my wife's phone or confront her. Having a young child at home made it very difficult to have a conversation of this nature, but I told her to tell me the truth or I would ask my friend for the details. She confessed to having an unrequited crush on a coworker and terminating a pregnancy. The coworker was the one that took her for the termination, but she insisted the baby was mine and she thought our marriage was almost done. This was about 13 years ago. I will never believe it wasn't the coworker that knocked her up. Well, if you like these stories, here's more. YouTube thinks you're going to love this. Catch you in that video.